Nellie Hicks, a 59-year-old woman residing in Newark, California, shared her home with a housemate. After divorcing her husband 10 years prior, she single-handedly raised her 6 children. Nellie dedicated her time as a 4th-grade teacher at Ashland School in San Lorenzo. Tragically, on May 10, 1972, Nellie's housemate had a conversation with her around 1 a.m. before retiring to her own bedroom. Nellie, meanwhile, dozed off on the living room sofa, unknowingly marking the last time she was seen alive. The horrifying discovery was made 4 hours later, when one of Nellie's sons woke up to find her lifeless body, covered in blood, lying on the sofa. The police were immediately notified. Nellie had been brutally bludgeoned to death with a brick wrapped in pantyhose, and her body was found partially unclothed. The force of the blows had split her head open, leaving a gruesome scene. Additionally, she had been sexually assaulted. Investigation revealed that the killer had gained entry through an unlocked sliding glass door and used manicure scissors to cut her dress and bra. It was believed that Nellie was rendered unconscious before the assault took place, as her son, his wife, and her housemate were all asleep, unaware of the tragedy unfolding. Nellie's wallet was missing initially, but it was later discovered a few blocks away, alongside a pair of blood-stained panties. The only forensic evidence recovered by the police were fingerprints that remained unassociated with any specific individual for decades. The authorities thoroughly interrogated Nellie's housemate, family, ex-husband, and the men she had dated, yet no one was ever charged. The case remained unsolved for over 50 years. In 1979, another murder occurred with a strikingly similar modus operandi. Teresa Pica, a 48-year-old woman residing in Hayward, California, was found in her Edlow Drive home on May 15, 1979. Her 10-year-old twin daughter discovered her lifeless body slumped over the couch, face down. Teresa's nightgown had been pulled up, exposing her legs, and her hands were bound behind her back with rope. A blood-stained rock was found nearby, further adding to the gruesome nature of the crime. A shirt had been used to silence her, and it was noted that someone had forcefully opened a window in the living room. Later, a neighbor reported hearing movement near the house during the night. Pica's purse was missing, and her wallet, along with other personal belongings, were subsequently discovered in a neighbor's yard and in a garbage can down the street. Similar to Nellie's case, Teresa was sexually assaulted and murdered, while her 3 daughters slept in the house. Over the years, numerous individuals were investigated in connection with the case, but none were ever charged. Following Pica's murder, the Newark and Hayward police linked the crimes due to the consistent behavioral pattern observed in both cases. This led to the belief that solving one case would lead to the resolution of the other. Evidence was collected at both crime scenes. However, DNA testing was not available at that time. In the early 2000s, a male DNA profile was developed based on the DNA found at the crime scenes and entered into the combined database index system. However, no matches were found. In 2021, the Hayward Police Department submitted forensic evidence to Othram, located in the Woodlands, Texas. Othram scientists successfully utilized forensic-grade genome sequencing to create a comprehensive DNA profile for the unidentified suspect. In February of 2024, Fred Bernard Farnham was identified as a suspect in both cases. Farnham had an extensive criminal record and had lived in various locations, including the Central Valley, South Bay, Nevada, Idaho, North Dakota, Alaska, and Oregon. Unfortunately, Farnham passed away at the age of 73 in a hospital in 2007 before detectives could establish his connection to the murders. Police suspect that Farnham may be responsible for other unsolved homicides. These cases were finally solved after more than 50 years. Alexandra Kemp, born on October 11, 1982 in Leawood, Kansas, a city with a population of just over 30,000 people, was raised in one of the most affluent suburbs in the Kansas City metropolitan area. Known as Allie to her friends and family, she resided there with her parents and 2 brothers. From a young age, Allie displayed remarkable energy and enthusiasm, actively participating in 19 different sports teams and engaging in various extracurricular activities throughout her school years. Soccer was her true passion, and she excelled both on the field and in her academic pursuits. Upon graduating from high school in 2001, Ali pursued her dream of studying ecology at Kansas State University. Her desire to make a positive impact on others motivated her career choice. Ali even had plans to travel to Russia as part of an exchange program to assist orphan children. In 2002, after completing her freshman year of college, 19-year-old Ali returned home for the summer break. She sought a part-time job and cherished the opportunity to spend quality time with her loved ones before resuming her studies. Reuniting with her long-term boyfriend Phil brought her immense joy. Although they had chosen different universities after high school, they managed to sustain their relationship despite the distance, with summer breaks being their only chance to be together. Ali and Phil were fortunate enough to secure employment at the local public pool, and Ali's younger brother also joined them. Their work schedules were arranged consecutively, with Phil working mornings, Ali during the day, and her brother in the evenings. On Thursday, June 18th, Ali arrived for her shift, relieving Phil. Initially, she contemplated asking him to stay a little longer, but ultimately decided against it as they had plans for a date later in the evening. The day was rather gloomy, resulting in fewer visitors at the pool. Ali occupied herself at her desk, engrossed in a book, eagerly awaiting the end of her workday. As evening approached, her younger brother arrived at the pool to commence his shift. To his surprise, Ali was nowhere to be found. Ali's phone, keys, and personal belongings were left unattended on the table, but Ali herself was nowhere to be found. After thoroughly searching the area, he made the decision to contact their parents. Their father, Roger Kemp, hurried over, growing increasingly concerned as the situation seemed peculiar. He knew that Ali wouldn't simply abandon her belongings, including her phone, and leave work early. Roger meticulously combed through the entire area, meticulously checking every nook and cranny. Eventually, he arrived at the pump room. The room was enveloped in darkness, and initially he didn't notice anything suspicious. However, as he was about to depart, something caught his attention. In the corner, there was a blue tarp spread out, and a foot was protruding from beneath it. His heart sank as he approached, realizing that it was his daughter lying beneath the tarp. Ali was covered in blood and bruises, showing no signs of life. Additionally, her shorts and underwear were missing. Roger promptly dialed for an ambulance, but unfortunately the doctors were unable to save her. She passed away shortly after being admitted to the hospital. Medical experts determined that Ali had sustained a severe head injury, and the cause of death was strangulation. They also discovered numerous defensive wounds, indicating that Ali had fought back against her attacker. The police initiated an investigation and swiftly uncovered the first piece of evidence. There was an open first aid kit with a pill container on the floor of the pump room, near where the victim was discovered. It was sent to the laboratory, where experts found male DNA on the container and its lid. Biological samples were also found on Ali's clothing. After comparing all of these samples, experts concluded that they belonged to the same man, although he was not in the FBI database. The police commenced their search for potential suspects, beginning with Ali's boyfriend. Given the brutality of the assault, investigators considered the possibility that the assailant may have had personal motives. According to Phil, after his shift, he went to visit friends, and his alibi was corroborated by multiple individuals. In addition, he also provided his DNA sample, which did not match the perpetrators. The same was true for Ali's father and brother, as they both promptly provided their samples as well. Roger was overwhelmed with grief and spent the entire night at the morgue, refusing to leave Ali's side. The following day, he delivered a heartfelt speech to the gathered city residents, expressing his gratitude for their condolences and vowing to find his daughter's killer at any cost. The news of the murder quickly spread throughout the community, shocking the locals who were unaccustomed to such heinous crimes. Consequently, the police received an abundance of tips, and almost immediately, they obtained their first lead. Several individuals who had been at the pool reported seeing a suspicious man lurking around the area the day before the murder, observing them from behind bushes and even filming them. Other witnesses mentioned spotting a man with a similar appearance driving a beige Ford pickup truck in the pool parking lot. None of them recognized the individual, making it unlikely that he was a visitor. Phil provided an additional intriguing detail. Allie had confided in him that she sometimes felt uneasy working alone, sensing that someone was watching her. Although she did not specify if she had seen anyone suspicious near the pool, the accounts of other witnesses suggested that it could have been the same man. Another lead emerged from Allie's friend, Laurel. On the day of the murder, Allie had called Laurel around 3 p.m., expressing her boredom. In response, Laurel decided to drive to the pool to keep her company. When she arrived, she honked her car horn multiple times, expecting Allie to come out and meet her. However, instead of Allie, a man emerged from the pump room and waved at Laurel. Assuming he was Allie's boss, Laurel believed that her presence might cause trouble for her friend and chose to leave. Detectives found Laurel's account significant, as they believed this man to be the likely killer. Based on her testimony, they created a composite sketch of the suspect, which was subsequently distributed to local newspapers and TV channels. Phil took the initiative to launch a flyer distribution campaign featuring the composite sketch and a detailed description of the suspect. With the assistance of his companions and a multitude of volunteers, thousands of flyers were distributed throughout the town. Despite these extensive efforts, the authorities were still unable to apprehend the culprit. In an attempt to gather information, Roger also managed to raise $50,000 as a reward for any leads that could lead to the capture of the murderer. Unfortunately, this endeavor did not yield any fruitful results. However, a stroke of inspiration struck Roger later on. He conceived the idea of erecting a billboard along the busy highway he frequently traveled to work, featuring a composite sketch of the suspect. After discussing this idea with the police, they expressed their support. Nevertheless, they informed him that their department lacked the funds to rent a billboard, leaving Roger responsible for covering all the expenses. Roger reached out to a billboard rental company to inquire about the cost. Upon learning about his daughter's tragic murder, the company generously offered to provide the billboard free of charge, driven by their desire to assist in solving the case. Allie's father, taken aback by this unexpected turn of events, gratefully accepted their offer. Collaborating with the police, they designed a banner showcasing the composite sketch, the suspect's description, and details regarding the $50,000 reward. Once the billboard was erected, the police began receiving a substantial influx of tips, surpassing 1,000 within a few weeks. Each lead was meticulously investigated, leading them to stumble upon some intriguing leads. One tip pointed towards a local resident named James Strader, who bore a resemblance to the composite sketch. Detectives promptly approached him for questioning, but Strader provided an alibi, claiming he was at work during the time of the murder. His boss corroborated his statement, temporarily eliminating him as a suspect. However, another tip regarding Strader surfaced, revealing that he owned the same type of vehicle as the suspect. The plot thickened as the police discovered that Strader was wanted in 2 states for a series of crimes, including 3 sexual assaults and 2 kidnappings, all allegedly committed within a span of 3 weeks. Shockingly, he had assaulted his ex-girlfriend and coerced her into accompanying him in search of a new victim. Soon after, he ceased his actions and made an attempt to unlawfully enter someone's residence in order to steal money. Coincidentally, during that very moment, a 14-year-old girl happened to be passing by. Strader, using threats, coerced her into his vehicle. He then proceeded to drive to a secluded area where he assaulted both the girl and his ex-girlfriend. After leaving them stranded, he departed from the scene. Later on, he approached another woman's home and claimed that his car had broken down. When she opened the door, Strader brandished a knife, forcefully entered the house, and assaulted her. Subsequently, he abducted the woman and transported her to a different town. However, she managed to escape from his clutches. Eventually, Strader was apprehended in Utah. He had pulled into a gas station and fled without paying, prompting the staff to contact the police. Shortly after, a police officer noticed his vehicle, pulled him over, ran his identification, and discovered that he was wanted for kidnappings and assaults. While conversing with the officer, Strader displayed a smirk and suggested that he should be handcuffed. In relation to Allie's case, investigators promptly reached out to their counterparts in another state, requesting a DNA sample from Strader. However, upon completion of the analysis, the detectives were faced with an unexpected twist. Strader's DNA did not match the sample found on Allie's clothing or the pill bottle. Eventually, Strader was sentenced to life imprisonment for his other crimes, while the detectives persisted in their search for Allie's murderer. Despite months of little progress, in the autumn of 2004, the detectives received an intriguing tip. An individual contacted the police, stating that the composite sketch resembled someone they knew, a man named Teddy Hoover. Upon investigating Hoover, the police discovered that he resided in Kansas City and was employed by a pool maintenance company. Furthermore, his name appeared in the case files. Hoover had been questioned alongside others but had not aroused any suspicions. Investigators proceeded to visit his residence and inquire about Allie's murder. Hoover professed that he could barely recall his whereabouts on that specific day, considering it had been 2 years. The officers requested his DNA sample, but Teddy declined, stating he needed to consult with his attorney first. Law enforcement did not hastily eliminate him as a suspect, yet they lacked any proof linking him to the crime. Subsequently, they opted to have another conversation with him, but encountered an issue. Teddy, along with his girlfriend, had vanished without a trace, and their current location remained unknown. A month later, the police received a tip from an anonymous source revealing that Teddy and his girlfriend had relocated to Connecticut, more than 1,000 miles away from Kansas City. This raised suspicions. Teddy had relocated across the country right after the police began showing interest in him. The detectives contacted the state's postal service to trace Teddy's new address through them, but they found no information about him. They then requested the same for his girlfriend's name, and this time, they struck gold. The woman was receiving mail at an address in the small town of Bantam. However, there was a peculiar detail. A man named Benjamin Appleby was also receiving mail at the same address. Upon investigating this name, they discovered that this individual had an extensive criminal history, including robberies and assaults. Intriguingly, Teddy Hoover also had convictions for similar offenses, including an outstanding arrest warrant for public indecency. Detectives began to suspect that something was amiss. According to the postman who regularly delivered letters to Teddy's girlfriend's address, he only ever saw 2 individuals in the residence. Based on his descriptions, Appleby bore a striking resemblance to Hoover. The police once again sought assistance from their counterparts in Connecticut. Upon visiting the house, they confirmed that Teddy Hoover did indeed reside there, leading to his arrest on the public indecency warrant. In the meantime, the detectives assigned to Allie's case had arrived in Connecticut and were making preparations for the upcoming interrogation. They meticulously arranged an investigation board displaying photographs of the victim, Teddy, as well as images from the crime scene in the hopes that it would elicit a confession from Teddy. As soon as Teddy entered the room, he immediately became apprehensive upon seeing the display. Without much delay, he admitted that his true identity was Benjamin Appleby and that Teddy Hoover was the name he had assumed to evade capture, in honor of his deceased friend. Initially, Teddy vehemently denied any involvement in Allie's murder, but his resistance was short-lived. Merely 10 minutes into the questioning, he began to divulge information. According to Benjamin, on that fateful day, he had gone to the pool to meet with the manager and propose his company's cleaning services. It was during this encounter that he noticed Allie and was instantly captivated by her. Finding her in the pump room, Benjamin approached her, attempting to strike up a conversation. Although Allie responded politely to his compliments, it was evident that she was not interested. Undeterred, Benjamin persisted in showering her with compliments, but Allie remained uninterested and attempted to leave. In a desperate attempt to prevent her departure, Benjamin blocked the door with his hand and made an unwelcome advance towards her. When Allie pushed him away, he flew into a fit of rage and began assaulting her. Repeatedly striking her, he proceeded to remove her clothing with the intention of sexually assaulting her. However, upon hearing a car horn outside, he decided to strangle her instead. After concealing her body with a tarp, he ventured outside and noticed Allie's friend, Laurel, sitting in her car. Benjamin waved at her, and she drove away, oblivious to the horrific events that had just unfolded. Subsequently, Benjamin left the crime scene as well. Some time later, he made the ill-fated decision to return, only to arrive just as the medics were removing Ali's lifeless body from the pump room. It was at this point that the police questioned him, but he managed to avoid arousing any suspicion. Benjamin claimed to be unaware of the motive behind his heinous act and expressed remorse for his actions. He also confessed that he had developed genuine feelings for Ali, and when she rejected him, he lost control of himself. Following his confession, investigators promptly sent his DNA sample to the laboratory, where it was found to match the samples obtained. When questioned about why he took the pills, Benjamin claimed he was searching for a lubricant in the first aid kit. Following his arrest, he enlisted a lawyer who attempted to retract his confession, despite Benjamin's earlier reluctance to subject the victim's family to a trial. Nevertheless, with his DNA discovered on the victim's garments, the likelihood of evading punishment was slim. During the trial, his legal representative contended that the murder was accidental, yet failed to substantiate such a dubious account of events. In 2005, Benjamin was convicted and sentenced to a minimum of 50 years in prison, rendering him ineligible for release until 2054, with no certainty even then. Given his age of 29 at the time of sentencing, it was probable that he would spend the remainder of his life incarcerated. Subsequently, Benjamin has made numerous unsuccessful attempts to appeal his sentence, each one adding to the burden on Ali's family. Her father has made every effort to prevent his daughter's killer from being set free. In memory of Ali, her parents initiated self-defense classes for women, which garnered significant attention and trained tens of thousands of women. Ali's father was even honored with a visit to the White House by Barack Obama, who commended him for organizing the self-defense classes and emphasized their significance. Additionally, Roger was recognized for his innovative idea of displaying information about wanted criminals on billboards, a method that proved to be highly effective and previously unexplored.
On December 6, 1975, a shocking discovery sent shockwaves through the peaceful town, leaving its residents in disbelief. Two individuals, innocently riding their motorcycle, stumbled upon a lifeless body in a desolate field at the eerie intersection of 100th Avenue and Lowell Boulevard. Unbeknownst to them, this grim discovery marked the beginning of an enigmatic puzzle that would haunt the community for almost 50 years. The deceased woman was identified as Terry Becker, a Casper native who grew up with her parents, brother, and sister. She had graduated from Kelly Walsh High School and briefly worked for a newspaper before relocating to Denver. Known for her adventurous spirit, Terry's family described her as someone who effortlessly struck up conversations with strangers. She had a passion for painting and enjoyed immersing herself in music. On December 4, 1975, Terry was last seen alive while hitchhiking to Brighton, Colorado, with the intention of visiting her boyfriend, who was incarcerated at Adams County Jail. After reportedly hitchhiking to the detention center, her whereabouts remained a mystery. 2 days later, her lifeless body was discovered. It became evident that Terry's body had been callously discarded in the field, along with her personal belongings and clothing. An autopsy revealed that she had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Despite numerous investigations and reviews, the case remained unsolved until 2003, when a DNA sample from an unidentified male was extracted from the evidence found at the crime scene. This DNA profile was entered into the combined database index system, but unfortunately, no matches were found. In 2013, the Las Vegas Metro Police Department reopened a 1991 murder case involving Sherry Bridgewater, who had been raped and murdered in her apartment. They submitted the DNA found at the crime scene to the combined database index system and were astonished to discover a match with the unknown suspect in Terry Becker's murder. It was determined that the individual responsible for Terry's tragic fate had also committed the heinous crime against Sherry Bridgewater in Las Vegas. However, the identity of the suspect remained unknown at that time. In 2018, the case underwent genetic genealogy testing to establish a match using hereditary DNA analysis. Following 5 years of extensive research and testing, Thomas Martin Elliott was identified as a suspect in both murders. In October 2023, his remains were exhumed and positively confirmed as the perpetrator in both cases by January 2024. Elliott had an extensive criminal history and had spent considerable time in and out of correctional facilities. Prior to murdering Terry, he had committed a burglary in Lakewood, resulting in a 6-year prison sentence. During his time in prison, Elliott was transferred within the Department of Corrections system and eventually released in Las Vegas in 1981. After his release, he committed a crime against a child and received a 10-year sentence. He was once again released in Las Vegas in 1991, where he went on to murder Sherry Bridgewater. Thomas Elliott tragically took his own life on October 30th, 1991. Authorities are currently reviewing data to determine if there are any additional cases that may be connected to Thomas Elliott.